Why Cisco Security Part 3, the current landscape. Now this just gives some perspective of some of the investments that may have already been made in an organization to minimize risk. And so they may have network detection and response. They might have some threat-centric network admission or access control. They might have some endpoint detection and response capabilities. They may have secure email, next generation firewall, multi-factor authentication, and maybe some observability. Now, when looking at this, what we can see is that there are multiple different vendors in play here. And this scenario might be ideal. It might be driving towards the outcomes that are expected. But it does come with some complexity. And we know complexity is the enemy of security. But we want to maximize those investments. We want to get additional value. So how do we do that? Well, currently we see 4 security vendors in play. And again, this is just a snippet. Now, if the customer is looking for an ability to get more value out of the entire investments that they've made across all the vendors that they have, and they're looking to unify and coordinate across all of these different security solutions during an incident, they're trying to reduce mean time to detect and respond. They want to empower their teams to get more value out of the tooling itself without the added complexity and nuance. And they're looking for supported, curated, validated integrations with third-party technologies. And they're trying to remove fragmentation with endpoint detection response, network detection response. They want to add identity threat detection and response capabilities. And they may have a longer term strategy to implement a SIM. Now, based on the problem statement, maybe XDR is the right answer here. But do we add a 5th security partner to the equation here? Or do we look at the vendors that are in play today and look for the best possible scenario to drive the outcomes desired without the complexity? And remember, we want to add things like identity threat detection and response as part of our extended detection and response platform. So let's look at this from the power of the platform perspective. So we've got all of our investments here, multiple different vendors. How do we get more value with the existing stack? Well, there's some things that might be available, right? We can integrate the Palo Alto firewall with secure network analytics and export flow data. We could also use network detection and response, and we can drive integrations with Cisco Identity Services Engine. And this helps drive towards zero trust compliance and contextual sharing. We can also add integration with Identity Services Engine and risk-based multi-factor authentication with Cisco Duo. So we're adding an additional layer of authentication based on risk when accessing the environment. Now, if we introduce XDR, let's assume that we go with Cisco's XDR platform. How does that solve the problem statements that we made earlier? Well, we start integrations, but it goes well beyond that. So say, for example, risk-based multi-factor authentication, we get asset insights and context, we have controls and response and automation integration. So there's an identity that's suspect. Let's mitigate that by disabling the multi-factor account. With Microsoft Secure Email, we get detection and analytics and correlation, threat hunting and investigation, controls and response and automation. That's pretty neat because now we're starting to get additional value outside of the Cisco ecosystem. Now with Identity Services Engine, we get contextual insight and automated response. With CrowdStrike's endpoint detection response tool, we get a lot of different capabilities here, from detection, analytics and correlation, threat hunting, to asset insight, to response and automation capabilities. With Cisco's network detection response capabilities, we get threat hunting and investigation, controls and response, and automation. And there's some dashboard tiles that we get as well. Now, with Palo Alto's next generation firewall, we get threat hunting and investigation. So we start to drive more value out of all the investments. But over time, organizations are trying to simplify and consolidate. And so the picture may look like this today, but what happens tomorrow? As some of these products refresh, we have an opportunity. Now we can look at some additional consolidation efforts. So maybe we look at displacing what we're doing for endpoint detection response, next generation firewall, and secure email, because we can get similar, some would argue better, value with an integrated, consolidated, platform-based approach. And so here we see that we replace those three technologies. Now, again, it's all about plug and play. It is an integrated platform approach, regardless of the vendor that you use, but there is an opportunity. So maybe we replace Palo Alto next generation firewall with Cisco's next generation firewall, and we get some additional capabilities with extended detection and response, but we also get some other additional value like encrypted visibility engine within the platform itself to allow us to detect threats without having to decrypt them. The things like correlation policies, retrospective security, and contextual insight into the assets that are being protected, and many more features. And then we reconsider our footprint with Microsoft Secure Email, and we go with Cisco, and we get, again, some additional capabilities around advanced phishing, leveraging large language models, looking at the body of the email and identifying risk factors that are associated with that, and minimizing our risk with all the other things that you would expect in a traditional secure email platform. And then we unified the endpoint. And maybe the reason why we looked at unifying the endpoint is because we needed more than endpoint detection response. We needed VPN, we needed zero trust access, we needed DNS and web proxy-based protections, we needed digital experience, and we needed flow analytics to augment our network detection response capabilities. And so it made a lot of sense to unify and simplify the endpoint. Now, many organizations are driving towards reducing the number of security vendors. And ultimately, that long-term strategy included SIEM. And so now we introduce Splunk SIEM capabilities on top of the observability elements, and we get, again, additional value out of that ecosystem. And XDR provides high fidelity alerting to Splunk that allows us to further optimize the data storage required when consuming telemetry, because XDR can become that front end and provide that high fidelity alerting to Splunk. Now, it doesn't mean all of it goes to XDR first. There's going to be compliance reasons why you want to send data directly to SIEM as well, but there is an opportunity to further introduce synergies between the platforms themselves. Now you drive towards a unified, integrated security platform approach. And this doesn't mean that all of the technologies within your arsenal will be Cisco. There's still many other pieces I'm not covering here because we don't have enough time to go through all the different elements. But there's certain areas that you may leverage, like deception-based technologies that Cisco doesn't provide. And certainly we have partners that we would certainly recommend that have direct integrations within the platform that are supported. But at the same time, there might be areas that you'll introduce additional vendors to solve a specific use case. So what we want to do is take advantage of the opportunities where we can simplify, because fragmentation is still going to be an element of security. And that is why I believe Cisco in 2025 and beyond is fundamentally changing the way we do security.